I never could have imagined how our new living situation would end. But let me start from the beginning. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through bills and crunching numbers. My mind was racing with thoughts about how we could finally save enough to buy our own home. We were renting, like thousands of other young families just starting out. But every time we started to feel settled, the landlords would announce they were selling the place, and we'd be back to square one searching for another rental. We were a young family. My husband, Mark, and I had just celebrated our 5th anniversary. We had one son, Ethan, and for now, that was enough. We didn't want to risk delaying our dream of homeownership any further by having more kids. To make that dream a reality, we were both working 2 jobs. Well, I was working a second job from home. I was an accountant, handling paperwork for small businesses. Mark, on the other hand, worked long shifts at the factory with only 1 day off a week. That day was precious. It was the only time he got to spend with Ethan and take care of things around the house. One evening, Mark came home after a grueling night shift, exhausted but with a strange sparkle in his eye. "You know my mom's neighbors, right? Well, they won the green card lottery. They're moving to the States and need to sell their apartment quickly. They're offering it at a really good price." I looked up, feeling my heart skip a beat. "But we don't have enough for a down payment, Mark. You know that." "My mom said she could lend us some money, and your parents might help too. We'll pay her back first. Then your parents. This could be our chance, Emily." I started to see the possibility, but the thought of living next door to my mother-in-law, Margaret, made me uneasy. She was a strong-willed woman, and I wasn't sure how well we'd coexist under the same roof, or in this case, the same building. "Mark, what do you think about this?" I asked, searching his face for answers. He hesitated for a moment before responding. "I'm not sure either, but we don't have many options. We can't afford a place without help." I knew he was right. We were both working ourselves to the bone, but home ownership still felt out of reach. Still, the idea of losing our independence weighed heavily on me. Mark, sensing my anxiety, sighed and said, "Emily, you're amazing. We'll figure this out. We'll set boundaries. No dropping by unannounced, no meddling. And when we need help with Ethan, she'll be right there. It's not ideal, but it's a start." I nodded reluctantly. "Maybe you're right. Having her close could be helpful with Ethan. And I can take on more freelance work to pay off the debt faster." And so, we took the plunge. My parents gifted us the money for the down payment, saying it was their housewarming gift to us. Margaret kept her word too, lending us the rest. But her comment about how she'd now have someone to call if she got sick or needed help didn't sit well with me. Mark and I exchanged a glance, but said nothing. The previous owners left behind an old hairdryer, the kind you'd see in salons back in the 90s. I was ready to toss it out, but Margaret intervened. "Don't throw that away. Do you know how much that cost back in the day? I'm almost 60, Emily. It's hard for me to hold a regular hairdryer. I'll just pop over to use it now and then. And it's great for warming my neck in the fall before the heating kicks in." "Why don't you just take it to your place?" I suggested, trying to keep my tone light. "Oh, no. You have a 3-bedroom apartment. I only have 2. No space for it. And it uses so much electricity. I can't afford that on my pension." I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to say, "So now we're paying for your luxuries?" But seeing Mark's pleading look, I let it go. Soon, Margaret's visits became a daily routine. She'd come by in the morning to dry her hair and in the evening to warm her neck. And of course, she'd always make a detour to the kitchen, sampling whatever I'd cooked for dinner. "You could use a bit more salt here," she'd say, or "You overcooked the chicken tonight, dear." It was exhausting. Then she came up with a new idea. My cholesterol's through the roof. The doctor said no more fried food. You have a steamer, right? Let's cook together. It'll be healthier for all of us. Mark, sensing my frustration, took the steamer and handed it to her. "Here, Mom, cook whatever you need." But that didn't solve the problem. Now, Margaret would show up at my door before work, saying, "Emily, sweetie, can you come press the buttons for me? I'm afraid I'll break it." Eventually, the steamer found its way back to my kitchen. It was easier to just cook for her and bring the food over. But yesterday, Margaret outdid herself. It was my day off, and Mark and I had the rare luxury of sleeping in. But at 7 a.m., the doorbell rang. I threw on a robe and rushed to the door, not wanting Ethan or Mark to wake up. There stood Margaret, with a young man in tow. "Margaret, what are you doing here so early? You'll wake everyone up." "Let us in. This is a contractor. I've had the most brilliant idea. Our kitchens are back to back. He's going to design an archway between them. We'll have one big shared kitchen. You're already cooking for everyone anyway, and it's not like my own son would charge me for food, right? Plus, I won't have to ring the doorbell every time I want to come over. I feel like a stranger standing out here on the landing. This apartment is partly mine after all." I was stunned. My jaw dropped, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. Then, I stepped in front of the door, blocking their way. "Enough is enough. First of all, you'd need permits from the city to make structural changes. And second, did you even think to ask Mark and me if we wanted this?" Mark, hearing the commotion, came out and silently guided Margaret back to her apartment. For the past week, it's been quiet. Almost too quiet. I can't help but wonder, is this the calm before the storm? Or is Margaret finally backing off? Only time will tell.